How's it going, everyone? It's Avi from Weather 1000, and today we're going to focus on this next major snowstorm that could bring over a foot of snow in some areas of the United States, as well as a major severe weather threat and an extreme wind threat along the coast. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the forecast, the European model forecast run, the latest run as of the 12Z run, and you see that now we're starting to see snow approach the northeastern cities such as Boston, New York City, Philadelphia. You guys are now getting involved in some snowfall, which is definitely a stark contrast from the previous runs we've been seeing, where primarily the bigger cities of the Northeast have been missing out on snowfall. But now we're seeing a shift further eastward with the forecast, which would mean that this snowstorm would affect a larger amount of people when it comes to winter weather impact. And you see that first out where there's severe weather as well. And to really show you guys the first begin on how the snowstorm will develop, let's take a look at the temperatures right now and look at how stark the temperature contrast is, because you see that pretty much just south of the Texas and Oklahoma border, you see that temperatures are well over 60, and we're even seeing 70-degree readings further southward. But if you just move a couple miles north, you get down to the 20s. So that really shows you how much unstable air there is in the atmosphere right around the southern Midwest, as this is just asking for a large amount of convection to occur in this region, which is forecasted to happen as a result of the amount of instability and lift there is in the atmosphere right around the Gulf Coast states, where you see that there's just such strong instability right now in the atmosphere that we're going to see a low pressure system develop right around the southern Midwest. Taking a look at the current radar, we already are seeing some snow showers throughout the Midwest, and while it's mostly light, that's quickly about to change as this low pressure system or this trough moves further southward, and we're going to continue to see a lot more lift and convection over the next couple hours for our next major snowstorm throughout the United States, for the United States to develop, as well as the next major severe weather threat further southward. But taking a look back at what the GFS or the European model is saying, let me first show you guys the European model. You see that if I were to continue to move forward, you see that the instability increases right around the southern Midwest, right around Texas. We see a little bit more convection. We see snow showers develop. And if I were to continue to move forward, you see that this storm eventually, by the time I'd say the low pressure system reaches the East Coast or is pretty much hugging the East Coast, that's when we should see this low pressure system rapidly intensify, and potentially at a historic rate too, because currently the GFS model, I'm pretty sure, is dropping this low pressure system at a millibar pressure down to 929 millibars just off the coast of Canada, which, if you want perspective of how strong that is, that's equivalent to the strength Hurricane Katrina made landfall in Louisiana at a 130 mile per hour category 4 hurricane. And 929 millibars is stronger than a lot of category 5 hurricanes as well, especially when we're comparing it to the smaller category 5 hurricanes, where I could typically see category 5 hurricanes right around the 930 millibar range. This is gonna flirt with the 930 millibar range as this approaches Canada. So this is gonna rapidly intensify, and you're gonna see this because you see that by Saturday, you see that this develops from this strengthens from 996 millibar low pressure system to 985 millibar low pressure system just off the New Jersey coast. And we see that there's heavy snow on the eastern side, the western side of this storm, as the European model has made a major shift further eastward with the forecast, bringing more of that heavy snow to the more eastern portions of the Northeast. However, the GFS model is still disagreeing, which, when we're talking about a storm that's 48 hours out, and there's still a pretty big disagreement with the computer models, it becomes a bit more, the forecast is definitely still uncertain despite the fact that we're only 2 days out. You see that the GFS model is still taking a track further westward when it comes to this low pressure system. Now, what really makes a difference with what's really making a difference with the trajectory is the rate at which this low pressure system will develop, because I noticed that the GFS model does want to strengthen this low pressure system a little bit faster as a result of a higher amount of instability than what the European model is forecasting at an earlier time frame. Because if we were to compare, you see that by the 940, let's say about 948 millibar, the 48 millibar range, you see that the 48-hour range, you see that the low pressure system is at 989 millibars. But if we were to compare that to the European model at the at the 48-hour range, you see that the low pressure system is a little bit further southward, and it's definitely weaker at 996 millibars. So what this means is that since if this storm were to develop a little bit faster, then that would mean that the instability is higher, and as a result, the upper level winds associated with this jet stream will be a bit faster to steer the storm further northward earlier, which would mean that it would be more of a rain event for the eastern portions of the Northeast. However, if this storm develops a little bit slower and doesn't strengthen as fast, that means that there's going to be a little bit less of an unstable environment earlier, and we would see the upper level winds a little bit weaker, which would mean that this low pressure system would move slower further northward, which would mean that it'll take this would take the further eastward track, because instead of moving northward very early, it moves a little bit later. So in this case, the European model is taking the track further eastward, since this low pressure system does develop a little bit later and there isn't enough instability to steer the storm northward very rapidly. So that's definitely the biggest thing we're going to need to pay attention to over the next couple hours, how much unstable air there will be, because that will definitely determine how fast the upper level winds will be to steer this low pressure system northward, and as a result, that will determine the trajectory. So if you want to pay close attention to how the trajectory will change, just pay attention to the temperatures very closely throughout the southern Midwest, because if we see a starker contrast than usual, then more likely than not, this low pressure system will develop more rapidly, and we'll see it track further westward rather than eastward, which would mean more of a rain event for the bigger cities along the Northeast. However, if this storm develops a little bit slower, then we're more likely to see snow for the east coast of the Northeast. So there's still definitely a decent amount of questions when it comes to trajectory, and this is not uncommon to see. Sometimes we do see even only an event 24 hours out have some uncertainty with the trajectory between the two computer models. It is one of those scenarios, but you guys still throughout the Northeast need to be aware and prepare in case the snowstorm does impact your area, because if the European model is correct, that would mean more snow for the bigger cities along the Northeast. However, whether the European model is correct or GFS model is correct, what I can't say more confidently is that the interior portions of the Northeast will experience a major snowstorm either way. So make sure to prepare throughout the interior Northeast and areas in the Midwest as well. You see that Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama is getting involved with some snow, Ohio, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. You see a large area of the United States is getting involved with some snowfall. Now, in terms of the snowfall accumulation you should expect if the European model was correct, which again, there's still a pretty high amount of uncertainty regarding the trajectory, especially when it comes to the Northeast. You see that if the European model was correct, this would bring a good area, I'd say right around 3 to 6 inches of snow right around the New York City area, maybe a little bit less than that, like 1 to 3. Pennsylvania, a large area, is receiving over 3 inches of snow. And then you see the interior Northeast is experiencing over 6 inches of snow in some cases. Boston's receiving around 1 to 3. Philadelphia is receiving right around 3 to 5. And so is Washington, D.C. So if the European model was correct, this would affect pretty much every Northeast city along the Interstate 95 corridor, but there's still uncertainty if that's exactly going to happen, because like I said, really really depends on how much unstable air there is right now to determine the speed of the upper level winds associated with the jet stream. And you see that looking further southward, you see the northern portion of Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee gets involved with some snowfall, 1 to 3 inches. This extends to New Mexico as well. Missouri is getting involved, as well as Illinois. The Chicago area could get involved with some snowfall. So I'd say for pretty much anywhere outside of the east coast of the Northeast, the forecast is pretty certain that you will experience a major snowstorm. Now let's take a look at the GFS model. You see that it's taking quite, while it's very similar for, I'd say, the Midwest, it's completely different when we take a look at the Northeast, because if you were to take a look at the Northeast, it's bringing a lot more snowfall along the interior portions of the Northeast, where the interior portions are experiencing well over 6 inches of snow, and in some cases over a foot of snow in the extreme interior portions of the Northeast, while the East Coast cities aren't receiving any sort of snowfall at all, which really shows that there's still a pretty high amount of uncertainty when it comes to trajectory. But I'll make sure to keep you guys updated with any sort of changes regarding the the forecast. And we just need to keep in mind with the temperatures right now throughout the southern Midwest to really determine the amount of unstable air that will determine the speed of the upper level winds. Because like I said, if the upper level winds are stronger, we're more likely to see track further westward, which would mean more rain for the Northeast, while with upper level winds a little bit weaker, then we're more likely to see snow along the East Coast. So definitely something we're going to need to pay close attention to over the next several days. However, that's not the only thing we're going to need to worry about. You also need to worry about severe weather throughout the Southeast, where we could see potentially a major tornado, hail, and damaging wind threat right around Florida and Georgia area, as well as heavy rain could be the possibility. You see that with this amount of with a jet stream dip this pronounced, we're bound to see just a lot of unstable air throughout the Southeast, and air that's pretty much warm enough to support for a high amount of lift in the atmosphere, where we could see a major severe weather. If I were to continue to move forward, you see a squall line forms right around Georgia, Florida, where we could see major severe weather. Now, taking a look at the convective available potential energy, that's another thing we're going to need to pay close attention to. So if I were to continue to move forward, you see that we're going to see a decent amount of convective available potential energy throughout the Gulf. And while you see that there isn't a lot over land, it's just enough to at least induce a little bit of severe weather throughout Florida as well as Georgia as well. And if you were to take a look at the vertical wind shear, there's definitely going to be a lot of it in the Southeast to maybe support tornadoes in the future, where look at how strong the mid-level winds are right around the 500 millibar portion of the atmosphere. Those upper level winds are going to be quite strong. If we were to take a look at the change in wind direction with height, you see that while it isn't significant, you see that this could be enough to where maybe a tornado threat could occur, because what really induces a tornado threat is a change in wind direction with height. And we're definitely going to see that, where you see the lower levels of the atmosphere are experiencing more of a northwesterly flow, while the upper levels of the atmosphere are experiencing more of a southwesterly flow. So definitely just enough of a stark contrast when it comes to wind direction, which could induce our next major tornado threat for the Southeast. So make sure to keep that in mind this Saturday for the Southeast, that we could experience our next major severe weather threat. Now, let me show you guys a future radar over the next several hours to really determine when you should experience impacts throughout the Midwest and the Northeast and the Southeast. So this is how it looks as of Friday 1 a.m. If I were to continue to move forward, you see the snow by right around Friday morning approaches Oklahoma, Texas. However, we will begin to see a lot more convection, I'd say right around the Friday afternoon time frame, where the heavier snow bands should develop. You see that we begin to see a line of snow develop, I'd say right around Friday afternoon to the early evening hours where Arkansas gets involved. We begin to see a little bit of severe weather occur right now in Louisiana, so watch out for that. But I don't think the severe weather is going to be significant until the Saturday time frame, where it really approaches Georgia and Florida, where the unstable air really intensifies right around that region. And if I were to continue to move forward, you see that eventually Tennessee gets involved with the heavy snowfall, northern portions of Mississippi, Alabama gets involved, and we see the snow expand throughout the Ohio River Valley and extend to Pennsylvania as well. And we really see the storm develop, where now we're seeing heavy snowfall throughout Tennessee and Kentucky and West Virginia, I'd say by the early hours on Saturday. And will begin to see the snow be the heaviest right around Saturday morning throughout Pennsylvania. And we should see the snow, if it does approach the East Coast cities, I'd say it should approach right around probably the Saturday afternoon time frame, when the backside and the cooler side of this storm approaches New York City and the East Coast cities in general. So make sure to keep that in mind throughout the United States, that this should be the worst for the Southeast, I'd say right around the Friday night time frame into the early hours on Saturday, and this should be the worst for the Northeast right around Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon, especially for New England. So make sure to keep that in mind. Now, taking a look at the watches and warnings issued, we now have winter weather advisories issued for a large portion of the Midwest. This includes the northern portion of Arizona, northern portion of New Mexico, as well as the northern portion of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas. All these states are under winter weather advisories, while they're not under winter storm warnings, because this storm isn't necessarily going to be anything extremely major for those regions. It's still at least something to be aware of, that winter weather is likely for a lot of these areas. But you see winter storm watches are now issued extending through Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and the interior portions of the Northeast, as it's becoming more imminent that you will experience a major winter storm this weekend. Now, let me show you guys my snowfall forecast as of right now. Again, there's still a decent amount of uncertainty for the Northeast, but I think for the interior Northeast and the Midwest, for the most part, this should be a fairly certain forecast. I'm expecting a large area of 1 to 3 inches extending through Oklahoma, the southern portions of the Great Lakes region, as well as the Ohio River Valley should get involved with 1 to 3 inches of snow. 3 to 6 just south of that, where Pennsylvania gets involved, and northern New Jersey could get involved with 3 to 6 inches of snow. And I'm forecasting right around 1 to 3 inches of snow throughout maybe New York City, Philadelphia, as I do think that we might see a shift in the forecast that brings snow to the East Coast. But again, this is still subject to change, and I'll make sure to update this forecast as we get more changes over the next couple hours. And then you see 6 to 12 inches forecasting for the interior portions of the Northeast, as it seems very likely we'll experience a major snowstorm. So make sure to stay safe throughout the United States with this snowstorm. But thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content, and I hope you guys have a great day.